Si Niang. It is said that Feng Sheng of Guangping County was born during the Zheng period of the Ming dynasty. When he was young, he was frivolous and dissolute, drinking excessively. One morning, he accidentally went out and met a girl wearing a red cloak and beautiful appearance. Behind him was a little servant, walking through the morning dew, his shoes and socks all wet. Feng Sheng secretly liked her. In the evening, Feng Sheng came back drunk. When he walked to a temple that had been abandoned for a long time by the roadside, he saw a woman coming out of it. At first glance, it was the girl he met in the morning. The girl saw him, turned around and walked in again. Feng Sheng thought to himself, why is the beauty in the temple? He tied the donkey in front of the door and wanted to go in and see what happened. Entering the temple gate, you can see only broken walls and ruins, and the stone steps are covered with layers of thin grass like a green carpet. While Feng Sheng was hesitating, a neatly dressed white-haired old man came out and asked, "Where are the guests coming from?" Feng Sheng said, "I passed by this ancient temple by chance and wanted to pay my respects." "How did I get here?" The old man said, "I am living here without a place to live, so I am temporarily settling my family here. Since you are here, I can use the camellia as wine." After that, Feng Sheng was invited to enter the temple. Feng Sheng saw that there was a courtyard behind the palace. The gravel road was very clean and there were no trees or grass. Entering the house, the curtains, beds and tents are all scented with fragrance. After sitting down, the old man introduced himself. "My surname is Xin." Feng Sheng took advantage of his drunkenness and asked abruptly, "I heard that you have a young lady, but you haven't found a good son-in-law yet." "I don't think of my own ability, and I am willing to hire a young lady." Old man Xin smiled and said, "Let me and my wife discuss this." Feng Sheng asked for a pen and wrote a poem. 1,000 pieces of gold are spent looking for a jade pestle, and I am diligent in handling it. If Yuming wants to, she will personally pound the xuanchuang. After reading it, the master smiled and handed the poem to the servant. After a while, a maid came out and whispered a few words to the old man. The old man stood up and asked the guest to sit patiently for a while. He lifted the door curtain and entered the back room. After vaguely hearing 2 or 3 sentences, the old man came out again. Feng Sheng thought there must be good news, but after the old man sat down, he just talked and laughed and never mentioned marriage. Feng Sheng couldn't help but asked, "I don't know what you mean yet, please explain to eliminate doubts." The old man said, "You are an extraordinary person. I have admired you for a long time, but I am a little secretive and cannot speak out." Feng Sheng requested again and again. The old man said, "I have 19 daughters, 12 of whom have been married off. My daughter's marriage is decided by my wife, and I will not participate in it." Feng Sheng said, "I only want the one who took the servant and walked on the dew this morning." Old man Xin said nothing, and the two of them were relatively speechless. At this time, a woman's soft voice came from the back room. Feng Sheng, taking advantage of his drunkenness, lifted the door curtain and said, "Since we can't be husband and wife, let's take a look at our appearance to eliminate my regrets." Everyone in the room was shocked when they heard the door curtain ring. He stood up and looked at him. Feng Sheng saw that there was indeed the girl in red, gorgeously dressed, twirling her belt in her hands, standing tall and graceful. Seeing Feng Sheng barging in, everyone in the room was panicked. Old man Xin was furious and ordered several people to drag Feng Sheng out. Feng Sheng's wine surged up and he fell into the grass. Tiles and stones fell like raindrops, but luckily they didn't hit him. After lying down for a while, he heard a donkey grazing on the roadside. Feng Sheng got up and rode on it, staggering onto the road. In the confusion of the night, Feng Sheng entered the valley by mistake, where wolves were running and howling, which frightened him to the point where his hair stood on end. He looked around hesitantly, not knowing where this place was. Seeing a faint light in a dark forest from a distance, Feng Sheng thought it must be a village and drove his donkey over. He looked up and saw a high door, so he knocked on it with his whip. Someone inside the door asked, "Where did this young man come from and came here in the middle of the night?" Feng Sheng replied, "He lost his way." The man said, "Wait until I report to the master." Feng Sheng stretched his neck and waited blankly. Suddenly he heard the sound of the door bolt being open, and a strong servant came out to lead the donkey for him. Feng Sheng went in and saw that the houses were very beautiful, the halls were brightly lit. After sitting for a while, a woman came out and asked the guest's name. Feng Sheng told her. After a while, several maids helped an old lady out and said, "The Lord is here." Feng Sheng stood up and wanted to salute respectfully, but the old lady stopped him and asked him to sit down. Said, "Are you Feng Yanzi's grandson?" Feng Sheng replied, "Yes." The old lady said, "You are my nephew. I am old and dying, and I have not had any contact with my flesh and blood relatives for a long time." Feng Sheng said, "My father died when I was young, and I don't recognize one of the 10 people who dated my grandfather. I have never met you. Could you please tell me how to call you?" The old lady said, "You yourself you'll know." Feng Sheng didn't dare to ask any more questions and sat there thinking hard. The old lady asked, "Why did my nephew get here late at night?" Feng always boasted of his boldness, so he recounted his experiences one by one. The old lady smiled and said, "This is a great thing. Besides, my nephew is a famous person and will not taint her family. Why is the wild fox spirit so arrogant?" "Don't worry, nephew, I can do it for you." Feng Sheng thanked him repeatedly. The old lady looked at the people waiting on both sides and said, "I didn't know the daughter of the Xin family was so dignified and beautiful." A maid said, "He has 19 daughters in his family, and they are all very handsome. I wonder who the official wants to hire." Feng Sheng said, "She is about 15 years old." The maid said, "This is the 14th mother. In March, she and her mother came to celebrate the birthday of the Junjun. How could the Junjun forget it?" The old lady smiled and said, "The high-soled shoes are engraved with lotus petals. The one filled with incense crumbs and covered with a gauze scarf while walking, right?" The maid said, "Yes." The old lady said, "This servant is very good at showing tricks and flirting. But he is also really handsome. My nephew has good taste." Then he said to the maid, "You can send a little girl to call her." The servant girl agreed and went. After a while, the maid came in and reported, "The 14th mother of the Xin family has called." Then she saw the woman in red, looking at the old lady and giving her a gift. The old lady pulled her up and said, "Now that you have become my nephew's wife, you don't have to do girlish rituals." The woman stood up, standing tall and graceful, with her red sleeves hanging low. The old lady straightened her hair, twirled her earrings, and said, "What has the 14th mother been doing in the boudoir recently?" The woman whispered, "If you have nothing to do, let's embroider some flowers." As he said that, when he turned around and saw Feng Sheng, he immediately became shy and uneasy. The old lady said, "This is my nephew. He wants to marry you wholeheartedly. Why did you let him get lost in the mountains? Ran around in the valley all night." The woman lowered her head and remained silent. The old lady said, "I asked you to come because I have nothing else to do. I want to be a matchmaker for my nephew." The woman still didn't say a word. The old lady ordered the maid to clean the bed and quilt. "Let the two of them get married." The woman blushed and said, "I have to go back and tell my parents." The old lady said, "I act as a matchmaker for you. What's wrong?" The woman said, "My parents dare not disobey the order of the county king. But if you do it in such a hasty manner, I won't dare to obey it even if I die." The old lady smiled and said, "This little girl has high ambitions and does not succumb to power. She is really my niece-in-law." So she pulled out a golden flower from the girl's head and gave it to Feng Sheng, asking him to go back and check the almanac. They decided on a good and auspicious day and asked the maid to send the 14th mother back. At this time, the rooster sang loudly, and the old lady sent someone to lead the donkey to send Feng Sheng out. Feng Sheng came out and took a few steps. When he looked back, he saw that all the houses and villages had disappeared, leaving only a few tombs covered by a dense pine forest and fluffy grass. Feng Sheng thought for a while and realized that this was the tomb of Zhu Shangshu. Zhu Shangshu was the younger brother of Feng Sheng's grandmother, so the old lady called him her nephew. Feng Sheng knew in his heart that he had met a ghost, but he didn't know who the 14th mother was. I sighed all the way back home and casually checked the date and time to wait, fearing that the ghost promise was unreliable. Go to the temple again and see that it is desolate and deserted. After asking the local people, they said that foxes are common in the temple. Feng Sheng thought to himself, as long as he gets a beauty, a fox is also good. On the chosen day, Feng Sheng tidied the room, swept the streets, and asked the servants to take turns looking outside the door. After waiting until midnight, there was still no movement, and Feng Sheng was already desperate. After a while, he suddenly heard the noise outside the door. Feng Shengjuo ran out with his shoes on and saw that the sedan chair had stopped in the yard. A beautiful maid was supporting the 14th mother in the sedan chair. There was nothing extra in the dowry, only the bearded servants carried a large piggy bank, which they unloaded from their shoulders and placed in the corner of the room. Feng Sheng was happy to have married a beautiful wife, and had no doubts that she was an alien. He asked the 14th mother, a dead ghost, "How can your family serve her like that?" The 14th mother said, Zhu Shangshu has now become the patrol envoy of the 5 capitals, and all the ghost foxes within hundreds of miles are at his service. I don't go home often. Feng Sheng never forgot that the old lady acted as a matchmaker. And the next day, he went to her tomb to offer sacrifices. When we went together, 2 maids came to present brocade silk with shell patterns as congratulatory gifts, put them on the table and laughed. Feng Sheng told the 14th Niang, and the 14th Niang looked at it and said, "This is the Junjun's thing." There was a young master from Chuyantai in the same county. He had been classmates with Feng Sheng since he was a child, and the two were very close. He heard that Feng Sheng married Mrs. Fox, so on the 3rd day of Feng Sheng's wedding, he sent gifts and personally came to toast Feng Sheng's house to celebrate. A few days later, Mr. Chu wrote another invitation, inviting Feng Sheng to the banquet. When the 14th mother learned about it, she said to Feng Sheng, "Last time the young master came, I saw him through a crack in the wall with ape-like eyes and an eagle nose. We cannot keep a long-term relationship with this man. It is best not to go." Feng Sheng agreed. The next day, Prince Chu came to accuse Feng Sheng of breaking the contract, so he presented his new poem. When Feng Sheng commented on these poems, he made some mocking remarks, which made Mr. Chu feel ashamed, and the two broke up unhappy. Feng Sheng returned to the house and told the 14th mother with a smile. The 14th mother said sadly, "Master Chu is a jackal. You can't joke with him. If you don't listen to me, you will be in trouble." Feng Sheng admitted his mistake with a smile. After that, Feng Sheng and Mr. Chu often joked about each other, and the original feud gradually disappeared. It happened that he came down to take charge of the scientific examination. Mr. Chu came first and Feng Sheng came second. Mr. Chu was so proud that he sent his servant to invite Feng Sheng to have a drink. Feng Sheng refused to go and called several times before going. Only later did I find out that it was Mr. Chu's birthday. The room was full of guests and the banquet was very sumptuous. Mr. Chu took out his test paper and showed it to Feng Sheng. His relatives and friends gathered round to watch it, admiring it while reading. After drinking for a few rounds, a band played music below, and it was noisy. The guests and hosts were very happy. Master Chu suddenly said to Feng Sheng, "As the saying goes, don't write essays in the field." Only now I know the error of this sentence. The reason why I am ranked ahead of you is just because the first few sentences of my article are slightly better. After the young master finished speaking, everyone in the house praised him. Feng Sheng took advantage of his drunkenness and couldn't bear it any longer. He laughed and said, "Do you still think you got the first place in the exam based on your essay?" As soon as Feng Sheng finished speaking, everyone's face turned pale. Mr. Chu was ashamed and angry, and had no words to answer. Seeing this, the guests gradually left, and Feng Sheng also slipped back quietly. After sobering up, Feng Sheng regretted it and told the 14th mother about it. The 14th mother said unhappily, "You are really a frivolous child from the countryside. If you treat a gentleman with frivolity, you will lose your moral character. If you treat a villain, you will be killed. You are in trouble. I can't bear to see you. You are in decline. Let's break up." Feng Sheng was scared and cried. saying that he regretted it very much. The 14th mother said, "If you want me to stay, I will make an agreement with you. From now on, you will stay at home, stop socializing, and stop drinking." Feng Sheng agreed respectfully. The 14th mother is diligent, thrifty and tidy, spinning and weaving every day. "I often go back to my parents' home, but I never stay overnight at my parents' home." He often took out some gold, silver and cloth for business, and whenever he had any surplus, he put the money into the piggy bank. The house is closed every day, and if anyone comes to visit, let the servants refuse. One day, Mr. Chu sent another letter to invite Feng Sheng. The 14th mother burned the letter to prevent Feng Sheng from knowing. The next day, Feng Sheng went out to the city to mourn and met Mr. Chu at the funeral home. Mr. Chu took his arm and invited him earnestly. Feng Sheng excused himself and refused. Master Chu asked the groom to pull the horse, hugged Feng Sheng and laughed. When he got home, Mr. Chu immediately ordered his family to hold a banquet. Feng Sheng said goodbye again, saying that he had to go back early because he had something to do. Mr. Chu repeatedly tried to persuade him to stay, and asked his concubine to play the zither and music. Feng Sheng was already bohemian, but he had been locked up at home a few days ago and felt very bored. Suddenly, I encountered the opportunity to drink heavily today. I was so drunk that I didn't care about it anymore. I was so drunk that I fell asleep on the table in a daze. Mr. Chu's wife, Ruan, was very fierce and jealous, and her maids and concubines did not dare to put any makeup on her. The day before yesterday, a maid came to Mr. Chu's study and was caught by Ruan. He hit the maid on the head with a wooden stick. The maid's head was broken and she died immediately. Mr. Chu held a grudge because Feng Sheng had humiliated him in public last time. He thought about revenge every day, so he planned to use this to get Feng Sheng drunk in advance and falsely accuse him of murder. While Feng Sheng was sleeping, Mr. Chu carried the maid's body to the bed, closed the door and laughed. Feng Sheng woke up from alcohol at 5 o'clock in the morning and found himself lying on the table. When I got up and looked for pillows and beds, I felt something greasy tripping my feet. I touched it with my hand and found that it was a person. Feng Sheng thought that the master had sent a boy servant to accompany him to sleep, so he kicked him again. The man was motionless, like a zombie. Feng Sheng was so frightened that he ran out of the room and screamed loudly. The servants of the Chu family got up, lit lamps, and found a corpse. They grabbed Feng Sheng and made an angry noise. Young Master Chu came out to investigate, and falsely accused Feng Sheng of failing to force him into rape, so he killed the maid, tied him up, and sent him to the Guangbing County government office. One day later, the 14th mother found out about this. She couldn't help but burst into tears and said, "I knew this would happen." So he gave Feng Sheng money every day to spend. When Feng Sheng met the governor, he was unreasonable and was tortured every day until his skin and flesh were bruised. The 14th mother went to ask him personally. When Feng Sheng saw her, she was filled with grief and anger and was speechless. The 14th mother knew that the trap was deep this time, so she persuaded Feng Sheng to confess first to avoid being beaten again. Feng Sheng agreed with tears. When the 14th mother came and went, no one else could see her. The 14th mother came home and sighed with emotion. Suddenly, she sent her maid away. After living alone for a few days, the 14th mother asked the matchmaker to buy a girl from a good family, named Luer, who was 15 years old and quite beautiful. The 14th Niang and Luer live and eat together, and they treat her differently from other maids. After Feng Sheng confessed to manslaughter, he was sentenced to death by hanging. When the servant heard the news, he burst into tears and told the 14th mother. When the 14th mother heard about it, she looked calm, as if she didn't mind at all. Soon, the day when the prisoners were executed in the autumn was approaching, and the 14th mother became very anxious. She often went out during the day and came back at night, without stopping. I often stay in deserted places and feel so sad that I lose all ability to sleep and eat. One afternoon, the fox maid sent by 14th mother suddenly came back. The 14th mother hurriedly got up and called the maid to a deserted place, and the two started talking quietly. When the 14th mother came out again, she was smiling and doing housework as usual. The next day, the servant went to the prison, and Feng Sheng asked him to bring back a message asking the 14th mother to meet him so that they could say goodbye forever. The 14th mother agreed casually, not feeling sad and not taking it seriously. Her family members privately commented that she was too tolerant. Suddenly, passers-by spread the word that Chu Yintai had been dismissed from his post, and Pingyang Observer was ordered by the emperor to retry Feng Sheng's case. The servant was overjoyed when he heard about it and hurriedly told the 14th mother. The 14th mother was also very happy and sent him to the government office to inquire. After going there, Feng Sheng had been released from prison and met his servant, with a mixture of joy and sorrow. After a while, Mr. Chu was caught. Pingyang observed the interrogation and understood all the truth. He immediately released Feng Sheng and let him go home. When Feng Sheng went home and met the 14th mother, he couldn't help but burst into tears. The 14th mother also looked at him with sadness. After feeling sad, he fell in love again, but after all, Feng Sheng didn't know how the emperor knew about his case. The 14th mother pointed at the maid and said, "This is your meritorious official." Feng Sheng asked in surprise why. It turned out that the 14th mother sent her maid to Beijing to complain to the palace and redress Feng Sheng's grievances. When the maid came to the capital and saw that there were guards guarding the palace, she hesitated outside the imperial ditch and could not enter for several months. The maid was afraid of missing something and was about to come back to discuss a solution. Suddenly she heard that the emperor was going to Dadong, so the maid rushed to Dadong in advance and pretended to be a prostitute. The emperor visited a brothel and loved her very much. He also suspected that she was not an ordinary prostitute, so the maid began to cry. The emperor asked, "Is there any grievance?" The maid replied, "I am originally from Guangbing County, and I am the daughter of Feng, a laborer. My father was about to be executed for an unjust case, so he sold me to a brothel." When the emperor heard about it, he was very sad and gave her 100 taels of silver. Before leaving, he asked about what happened in detail and wrote down his name on paper. He also said that he wanted to share the glory and wealth with her. The maid said, "I hope my father and I can be reunited. I don't want to live a wealthy life." The emperor nodded in agreement and left. The maid told the story, and Feng Sheng hurriedly bowed down with tears in his eyes. Soon, the 14th mother suddenly said to Feng Sheng, "If it weren't for love, how could I have these troubles? When you were imprisoned, I ran among relatives, but no one was willing to think of a solution for me. At that time it's so sad that I can't describe it. Now I feel more and more tired and distressed in the secular world. I have found a woman for you. Let's say goodbye from now on." Feng Sheng heard that he knelt on the ground crying and could not get up. Only then did Xin Niang give up. At night, 14th mother asked Luer to sleep with Feng Sheng, but Feng Sheng refused. The next morning, when I looked at Si Niang, her appearance suddenly dimmed. More than a month passed, and the 14th mother gradually aged. After half a year, she became dark and ugly, like a village woman. But Feng Sheng still treated her respectfully and remained unchanged. The 14th mother suddenly said goodbye again, and said, "You have a beautiful wife. What do you want from me, an ugly old woman?" Feng Sheng cried and begged like last time. Another month passed, and the 14th mother became violently ill. She refused to eat or drink, and lay in bed exhausted. Feng Sheng served him soup and medicine as if he were serving his parents. The witches and doctors were invited, but none of them worked. Finally, the 14th mother died. Feng Sheng was so distraught that he buried his 14th mother with the 100 taels of silver given by the emperor to the maid. A few days later, the fox maid also left. Feng Sheng married Luer as his stepmother, and a year later they gave birth to a son. However, with successive years of poor harvests and an increasingly depressed family situation, the couple was unable to do anything and felt relatively sad. Feng Sheng suddenly remembered the piggy bank in the corner of the room. He often put money into it, but he didn't know if the piggy bank was still there. When I looked over, I saw pots of black bean sauce and salt shakers all over the floor. I moved it away one by one and saw that the piggy bank was still there. I poked it into the jar with my chopsticks, but it was too hard to insert. He broke the jar and money poured out. From then on, Feng Shang suddenly became rich. Later, Feng Shang's servant went to Taihua Mountain and met the 14th mother, riding a green mule, followed by the maid on a donkey. The 14th mother saw the servant and asked, "Is Mr. Feng safe?" She also said, "Go back and tell your master that I have been listed as an immortal." After saying that, he disappeared.
Alright, this story has come to an end. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you.